So I want to start this morning by just taking a quick survey of those who are in the room. You can raise your hand, and those who are online, you can just put a thumbs up or a yes or a no in there. How many of you right now are facing a difficult life challenge? Just by a raise of hands. Yeah, probably about half. How many of you know someone who is going through a difficult life challenge right now? Yeah, that gets all the rest of us, typically. And so here's one more question. Where is it that the challenge lies in a really difficult situation? Point to it. Yeah, no, don't point to the person that's sitting next to you. Yeah. Yeah, as we grow spiritually, as we come to understand who we are as both spiritual and human beings, we discover that it's not so much about the difficult situation as much as how we are being in that difficult situation. It's a unique perspective. It's a spiritual perspective. It's an important perspective. And we're kind of in an elite group if you can really embrace that perspective, because most people in the world believe that when there's a difficult situation, the problem is in the difficult situation. It has nothing to do with them. Whatever it is that's going on, they would point their finger to someone or something out there. And yet, if we're working and seeking to live from our spiritual awareness, our spiritual understanding, specifically if we embrace our third principle of unity, which is that we co-create our experiences by the way we think, the way we believe, the way we feel about it, we become co-creators of how we experience life. So how I'm being with what I'm having determines my experience of it. Do you think that's true? Do you think two different people could have the exact same experience and be able to be with it in a different way? Yet each of us, I know I certainly have probably experienced times in our life where we believe, we feel that something or someone out there is against us. Sometimes it feels like the whole universe might be conspiring against me in a given moment. So many things just don't seem to be working in a way that is conducive to me keeping that peace and that love as part of my day-to-day experience. We believe at times that how life is unfolding, what's happening out there determines how I experience life within, this inner state of being, that our discomfort is about what's going on out there, not about anything that's within me. And in those times, we are living from our shadow. Yeah, this is going to be our shadow. Someone was saying, we need to have a talk about shadow. Well, guess what? Today, we get to talk. It's an integral part of this evolution to a more mission-centric. We all have to understand, recognize, know how to deal with, and know how to support others as they're dealing with their own shadows. Jesus called it the enemy. And here's how we know that we're in enemy territory. Here's how we know we've slid into that feeling and believing that something or someone is against us. So here's one last question for you. Have you ever felt like you needed to be right? Come on, put your big boy and girl pants on, because I think all of us have at some point in time felt like we needed to be right, that somebody has judged us for something that we feel like is unfair. It triggers something, or they said or did something, and you react. And you react with some level of judgment on them. Or if you're feeling really generous, you take the time to try and help them understand why they're wrong. It shows up sometimes when we know we're engaged with the enemy, when beyond just needing to be right, we want to control, or at least do our best to attempt to control what's happening out there. When you find yourself getting defensive, you're probably engaged with the enemy. Or, my favorite, I just run. Let me just avoid all of that if I can. What we're discovering scientifically, and what I think spiritual masters have known for eons, is that underneath that reaction, underneath those times when we're engaged with the enemy, is a belief that is what is reacting. And that belief tends to run in a few categories, a few general categories. I'm inadequate, I'm unworthy, I'm powerless, I'm unloved. That's what the belief that tends to get us to move into that enemy territory. And those beliefs are within us. They were likely formed in our childhood. And even though we may have grown up in the world, unless we've really been willing to engage with them and see them and heal them from this new place that we're at, they're alive in our subconscious. And they show up as triggers in us. And everyone has them. I don't care, because none of us were raised by Mary and Joseph or had friends and teachers and support systems that told us consistently every day that we are the light of Christ come to be in the world. Jesus might have even had one or two of them from his childhood. And while we believe, at least intellectually, that there's only one power and only one presence in the universe and in our lives, active in everything and everyone, yes, we say that, except. How many of you have exceptions? Well, not that person. Nope, there's no God alive in that person right now. And at least it's the potential. There may not be a full expression of it in the way we'd like to see it, but it's difficult to live from that principle, to say that every single person, every single situation, every single experience, God is in the midst of that. But what if our discomfort, what if those triggers that show up for us, and they're going to be unique for each of us, what if our pain, our frustration is simply a mirror unto us, showing us what still needs to be healed and transformed so that we can truly embrace who we are as beloved children of God? What if that's just pointing out to the places that are still working in our subconscious, that are wanting to be transformed into a new understanding of who we are? The reflection is simply the place that we can become curious about. How many of you ever have that reaction? Somebody comes, says something to you, it just triggers you, and you are either spouting back to them, or you're being defensive with them, or you're running out the door. And then you went, I wonder what that's about. Well, that's really what those triggers are. They're an invitation for us, at least from our own spiritual journey, to discover what's underneath them. We may not know, but the shadow knows. Whoa. That's for all you older folks out there. Remember the Orson Welles radio show, who knows where evil lies? Well, the shadow knows. So our journey is about getting to that place where we're willing and we have some tools in which to deal with that shadow part of ourselves, in which when things show up, we get curious about what's underneath that. What is driving that reaction? Think about right now an enemy that you have in your life. It could be an illness. It could be a body that no longer does what you'd like it to do. It could be a relationship, a political party, something happening out in the world at large. There's plenty. There's a plethora of them out there that we can engage with. And you know you're in relationship, again, when you're needing to be right or have things be a certain way or want to somehow control or change them or push it away. And Jesus gives very specific instructions about how to deal with the enemy. It shows up in multiple of the synoptic gospels, but I'm going to share from Matthew 5:44. So the first thing that he says to do with your enemies, how many remember what this is? Love. Love your enemies. We can love our enemies when we begin to accept that whatever's happening is here for us. It's not to diminish us, but it's here to open us up. It's here as a mirror. It's here to show us where we're still working to claim our innate worth. This opens at least a little sliver of a way that we can embrace it, that we can even value it, because it's here to show us what's still wanting to be healed. It's here to help us support that little boy or that little girl who's still in our subconscious holding on to those old beliefs. And only the heart can do this. Only love can get that first opening to happen in our lives. The second thing that Jesus instructs us to do is bless them that curse you. To bless something is to realize that this person or this thing or this situation has the capacity for good in your life. How many times, typically in hindsight, have you said, that horrible thing that I went through was the best thing that ever happened because it allowed me to grow into the person that I am today? It was the opportunity for me to stretch beyond where I have been before in this arena of being able to love and to bless. To bless something is an act and an expression of faith. It is trusting, even if I don't know what it is now, that there is good that can come as a result. And it's an affirmation in our belief that all things are working together for good. The third thing that Jesus instructs those to do them is to do good to them that hate you, to do the right thing. I used to call it taking the high road. When my husband was going through, well, he had already gone through a very tumultuous divorce, and then for the first several years, especially when the children were younger, and things would happen, you got to take the high road. They'll know. Your kids will appreciate this somewhere down the road. And it's hard to do. The last thing that most of us want to do when somebody treats us badly is to do the right thing. His or her treatment of us is all the proof that we need that we should be protecting ourselves, not being vulnerable, perhaps by doing the right thing. But as Jesus reminded people, what have you profited if you gain the whole world, if you've stayed safe and you keep your dominion safe, and yet you lose your soul? This is the work of the soul. You don't really lose anything by doing the right thing. Do you believe that? It may not give you as much satisfaction, so maybe you lose some of that by proving that somebody's wrong, but you get the reward of living from your whole and authentic self. And finally, he instructs those that he was speaking to and us today to pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you. Praying, as we just did a little while ago, is really for as much ourselves as those that we're holding in that prayer, because it is that activity that brings us back to our center, that brings us back to an awareness that we're so much more than just whatever this human experience that we're having right now. It puts you back in touch with your spiritual identity and allows you in that opportunity for prayer to see the potential for healing and growth, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. You know, if anyone ever had good reason to feel that he was hated and persecuted, Jesus was probably right up there. You know, everyone said he was an innocent, didn't do anything to harm anybody, treated everybody with love and kindness and respect. And yet, his final words, or one of the final words he spoke, even after those people had nailed him to a cross, was, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Even in that moment, the Christ knows nothing but to do the most loving and right thing. When you pray for your enemies, you lift yourself, you lift the situation into that realm where peace and possibility and the serenity of God is always present, is always at the center. And there's no time to start, I think, like the present. So we're going to move into a time of meditation and give us an opportunity to do a focused, quick practice of following Jesus' instructions. So as you just let go of everything that you might be holding on to, both physically and perhaps in mind, I find it easier to close my eyes just to shut out all of those external stimuli that happen. And just taking a deep breath, perhaps taking several, brings us back to this present moment. And when we practice this enough, is a trigger for us that it's time to go within. It's time to remember who we are. Beyond this human experience that we get to have in most moments, we are also a spiritual being, here to support and to expand that expression of God here on earth. So as you focus your attention in your heart space, because again, this always is a work of the heart. The brain, the mind may be able to grasp a concept, but the work is done in your heart. Invite someone or some situation that looks and feels against you in this moment, that feels at times like the enemy. And just see if you can't love it in this space of the heart. To bring in the possibility that this might be here simply as a place to show you an area in your own life that's seeking to be healed, that's seeking to be transformed, that you're disconnected from that awareness that you are a beloved child of God. Just do your best to see if you can't bring some compassion for yourself and for everyone involved. And you might want to take another deep breath and then see if you can find a way to bless it, to know that it has the capacity to bring good, to bring more healing, to bring more love into your life. Take another deep breath. And then ask this person, this situation, from the wisdom of your heart, what's the right thing for me to do? What is the most loving thing that I can do? And just listen for a moment. And then take another deep breath and see if you can't begin to forgive, to give understanding to this which feels like the enemy, even if it's yourself. Just open the door by your willingness, even if you're unsure how to do it. Surrender it and allow love, expressing as you, to bring peace, to bring greater light and the expansion of love into this circle of your world. And as you take one more deep breath, just begin to bring your attention back to this time and place, aware once again of your body and the seat supporting you, the sounds in the room. And then whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So, this is transformative work. We're talking about that purpose, that collective purpose of transforming lives, including our own. And this is one of those processes that can make an amazing difference in how you get to live and be in the world. And then take that out and change the world as you show up as who you've really come here to be. I want to share a story with you to close that was very transformative for me. So, several years ago, actually 10 years plus years ago, after a series of strokes, my father was nearing the end of his life. And a call for the family to come home and to make some decisions was put out there, and I flew home on Christmas Day. And as we gathered, my dad, my mom, my two brothers, my uncle was in there, a big group of us sitting around in the room talking about what the next steps should be. It was either going to be try rehab or move into hospice. That's kind of the discussions we were having. I made a statement, and I'm not even sure exactly what that statement was anymore, but my older brother who was sitting next to me just blew up. He just started screaming at me, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Why would you even say something like that? Blah, 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 blah." And for the very few times in my life, those buttons got pushed deep and I blew up. I am not a yeller. I was yelling. I was screaming. "You don't get to say that to me. You've been expletive words all my life and blah, 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 blah." Till finally I just, began to dissipate energy. So much so that my sister-in-law and my nephew who were sitting in the other room were about to have to come in because they thought we were going to go to blows. With everyone, my poor dad dying, sitting around, witnessing all this. And when I finally caught a little breath, my mother looks at me, just because I hadn't been triggered enough, and said, "Now let's all just calm down. Don't you tell me to calm down when this one has been the bane and has just spewed on us his whole life. You need to be looking at him." And then I finally just blew up and walked out of the room, and I'm out. And of course, then the tears come, And I'm just out in our garage. It was winter time, by the way, so it's chilly out there. I'm out in the garage just bawling. And I finally said, with all of my being, every fiber of my being, my heart, I said, "God, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want these family dynamics to get me to feel this way anymore. I give it to you." And in that moment, I kind of realized that I was that little girl that he had regularly told was stupid, was ugly. He embarrassed me. He wouldn't even, acknowledge me as family in the world, the outer world. All those memories just came flooding back into this moment. And I have been had been on this spiritual journey for several decades. I've done a lot of forgiveness work. He was usually right at the top of the list. And each time I'd think, okay, got it, done, until I saw him again. As long as I didn't talk to him, I was doing really good with it. And this time, I don't know what happened that was different, but it was almost like this mystical experience. I was just truly done. I was. And in the next moment, it was like this warm blanket was being wrapped around me, and my soul whispered to me, I love you. You belong to me. You're safe. You're enough. This family needs your love and your support right now, so get back in there. So I went back in and I apologized to everyone, including my brother, especially for diverting the energy away from the most important thing we were there to do, which was to support my dad. And then I said, and the best way for me to do that right now is just to go to bed, and I trust you all to make whatever decisions, and I will support you. So my dad died 2 weeks later, and despite my brother's objections that my weird, non-traditional service that my father and I had agreed I would do, would embarrass him, would be just the worst thing we could do, and he lobbied quite hard, I very calmly and firmly said, nope, I'm doing this. This is going to be a celebration of life. It's not going to be a funeral. And interestingly enough, and it was a beautiful service, and after the service, a number of his friends came up to me saying that that was the most celebratory, joy-filled memorial service that they'd ever gone to. And one even asked me if I would do his service when that time came. So I was kind of like, nah. Because I'm human after all, you know. For a few moments, I did a little, I said, see? And like I said, that was more than 10 years ago. And I haven't been triggered by him since. And I've seen him, and I've talked to him a lot. And in large part, he hasn't changed all that much. He still spews his upset and anger. He goes off on his tirades. But because I'm showing up differently, it's changed our relationship. I found the secrets to minimizing his rants. When my daughter got married here in, I think it was 2014. So this was several years later, and I found myself sitting all the family came. I was sitting next to him at the dinner. And I don't know, he started about something or another. He has a whole plethora of things that he can pull out at will of what's going wrong in our world and in life in general. And I just, with no thought, put my arm around him and reached over and I started kissing his cheek. And I said, oh, you're just so cute when you start getting off on your rants about some topic or another. And it stopped him in his tracks. He didn't know where to go with that. How does he continue to respond in that way? It was the dynamics that I was able to change with love. And I can do it now. And I can see him from that perspective now. In my curiosity, in hindsight after this all had happened, as to why all those other attempts at forgiveness had failed, because I'd done them very sincerely. I'd followed the process. I realized that in large part I'd only done it in my mind. And forgiveness is a work of the heart. In that garage, I forgave him with all of my heart. And in the process, I was able to, in many ways, transform all of those old beliefs and buttons and triggers that went along with it. Several months ago, as many of you heard, my mom had a small stroke. And when my brother heard about it, he was certain that this was the end for her too, because that's what had happened to my father. And he called me and he was crying, which is not a usual occurrence. And I just found myself reacting with compassion for him and just being that one to soothe him and say, it's going to be okay. And as we wound up our phone conversation, for the very first time in his life, in his 65 years, he said, "I love you." And I responded with, "I love you too." And then I hung the phone up and I went, what the heck just happened there? So if I accomplish nothing else in this lifetime for me, this is one of my biggies, it will be enough because it led me to know that I'm enough. I've, in the last decade, discovered the quantum living process, which is the shadow work that I've begun bringing into this community to allow people to work with and work through as a way to engage with their shadow, with all of those below the line stuff that still is alive within us, and begin to be able to transform it. And so I'm offering it as an opportunity for those who are brave enough to want to go and look into some of that work. It's going to be August 2nd, 6 weeks. It's going to be on Zoom so that anybody around the country can join us. But it's work. You have to be willing to commit to about 20 to 30 minutes a day to this process. So if that works for you, I would love, this is part of the process. As we heal, as we transform lives, then we are better able to go make a difference out into this world. Because the world does need your light. It needs your love. It needs your unique purpose and passion. It needs that vibrancy in your soul so that you can come and be who you've said yes to before you stepped into this human journey. And in the messiness and of this transformative time, and it can be messy, to have faith that in the end, everything's going to be all right. I love this line from a movie. And if it's not all right, if it's not okay, then it's not the end. There's more time. There's more opportunity. So join me on this journey as we let love rule. All right, well, it is our opportunity to share of our financial good this morning. In just a moment, the ushers are going to invite you to come up row by row and place your gift in the large basket, and then take an affirmation to support you this week from the smaller basket to be in that flow of giving and receiving, and we're just grateful for. And we keep ourselves and our hearts and our awareness open to the good that flows in and through our own lives and into the lives of this community. So let us take what we offer today into our hands, into our hearts if we give electronically, and bless it together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God.
If you're watching us for the first time, we're glad you have chosen to join us. We invite you to visit our website and fill out the Connect card. And if you're watching locally, we want you to join us. If you're visiting us for the first time in person, we want you to fill out the visitor card found in the pew pocket and put it at the visitor's desk in the lobby, or drop it in the box at the back of the church. Last Sunday, 12 of our people and 5 from the community donated a pint of blood, of red blood cells, potentially saving up to 51 lives. Those who are the recipients may or may not think about the entire process and how the blood got to them. They and their families do know, however, that they are fortunate to receive this life-saving gift. We bless those who receive, and we wish them rapid healing. And to the wonderful donors, we love you, we bless you, we truly appreciate you, and we behold in the Christ in you. Namaste.
Here's what's coming up at Center of Unity. Our Spiritual Education Council is in need of a dedicated laptop for adult Sunday school each week. If you have a laptop you aren't using or know of someone who might, please contact Mary Salerno. Join Corked for a July barbecue at Meet You Anywhere Barbecue in Grapevine after church on July 16th. Please RSVP to Barbara Looters by July 12th. Join us on Wednesday, July 19th at 6:30 p.m. for a Taizé healing service with a meditative time to enrich your mind, body, and spirit. There will also be a time to receive healing affirmations and energy from the care team. The Art of Quantum Living is a transformational 21-day process of self-regulation tools, exercises, and techniques designed to reduce anxiety, foster a raised degree of self-awareness, emotional resiliency, and increased efficacy, as well as embodying positive change. Join Reverend Linda on Zoom for this 6-week course. The course fee and workbook is $45. Please sign up at the COU website or app. There are multiple ways you can make a donation to Center of Unity. You can drop your donation off at the church, mail it to our P.O. Box, visit our website, or use the COU or Venmo app. Your continued support is greatly appreciated.
All right. We want to thank everybody for joining us this week, and I believe we have our kids back there going to come down the hall. Let's sing them in, Bob.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.
Good morning, everyone. Another small but mighty crew this week. Everyone's off doing their adventures for the summer. And let's see, and I think Doc has something to share about what we did today.
Today we had a duck race.
Today we made bracelets to remind us of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish that Jesus used to feed the 5,000.
Today we did elephant's toothpaste to remind us of Jesus feeding the 5,000s.
Brilliant.
Wonderful. All right. Yes.
So if a couple of you could, I'm doing it, Mary, a couple of you could help out. We've got all this stuff to go to Grace. Help us load it into Mary's trunk. It probably won't take more than about 2 minutes from Fellowship Hall out to her trunk. We would greatly appreciate that. All right.
All right. Why don't we all stand up together? Let's join hands and we will do our peace song.
Meant to be with God as our Father.
this week, just being curious when things and people push our buttons, we go, knowing our prayer for protection. Together, the light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a great week.